afternoon. I'm currently replacing my oil pressure gauge. It's the old Smith's gauge, and I got a brand new Land Rover style gauge which has the oil pressure and then the temperature in centigrade, so I'm going to get a little bit more accurate reading on those two. And I'll show you the gauge right now, what it looks like. Here's the new gauge, and it comes with, all the washers, and this is the sensor for the water temperature, and then I've got this coiled hose which goes to the oil pressure outlet, and I've got a banjo adapter here, and basically that goes on the oil filter at the top of the canister. So I'm getting ready to install that. I've removed the old oil pressure gauge, which was electrical, so it depended on an electrical sender, and it really never went above 25 pounds pressure. So the old oil pressure gauge is removed. Now what I did here was I just sealed off the end of the green wire, which is hot, basically. That's the positive. This is the old oil sender, which was attached via a banjo bolt, they call it. This banjo bolt was attached to the top of the oil filter canister. And basically it's electrical, and that's probably why I never got a reading above 25 psi. This little red washer goes right on the tip there of the outlet, and that fits into the end of the hose like that. There is not a hole big enough to allow the capillary tube with the big nut attached to the end of it to fit through the firewall, so I just basically I'm going to use a Dremel tool to go ahead and cut a little bit of a hole in the firewall. So here you can see I'm pulling the water temperature sensor through the hole that I made, and I had to widen it in order for this piece to fit through because this bolt is so wide. So I had to widen that hole for it to fit through, and I'll use this grommet to seal up the hole a little bit better when I pull the water temperature sensor through it. So here you can see I've put the water temperature sensor into the engine block, and that takes a 5/8 UNF adapter attached to the brass bolt. They have two kinds. There's a 3/8 and a 5/8, but for this particular engine block, the 5/8 fits in there nicely. And then I've taken the cable, well, the capillary tube is what it's called, and I just put it. You can't make a crimp or a bend in it, so basically I made a loop, and I'm just using a cable tie, and then I put a cable tie there to the heater cable, so the heater cable comes out of the firewall, and this does too. The next step is for me to attach the oil pressure cable to the oil filter canister top. So I've got a banjo connector attached to the tube. So here it is. Here's what it looks like. So the way this works is this is a special bolt. On this end, the oil pressure switch for the green light goes. It goes here. And then over here, I'm going to put two washers. It's going to go up through the banjo bolt like that. Another washer goes right here, and then this goes into the oil filter canister top. So that's how the assembly's going to be placed. I'm trying a special washer on the switch, on the oil pressure switch, with a rubber, looks like it has a rubber washer on the inside and it's steel on the outside. That's what I'm going to use, and then that goes into here, and I think the seal will be better, so I'm just going to try that and see how it works. Here you can see I've hooked up the banjo bolt and the through bolt, and on the end is the oil pressure switch. That's what's right there on the end, and that should all work fine. I'm going to give it a test now and see how it works. So the engine's running. I just started it up. You can see I've got about 50 psi on the oil pressure, and it's running at about, looks like 50 here, it looks like 50 centigrade temperature. So this oil pressure and water temperature gauge is working perfectly, and everything's hooked up great.